To date, Mack Rides has built 5 roller coasters that reach a height of 200 feet or taller. These are amazing coasters like Beyond the Cloud, DC Rivals, and Hyperia. Now, with how great these coasters really are, the question that I have is which park could build the next hypercoaster from Mack Rides, especially with how impressive Hyperia looks. So here are a few parks that I think have a realistic shot at opening up a brand new Mack hypercoaster within the next 5 years. My name is Brandon and welcome to Theme Park Predictions. I'm really glad you're here and I hope you're having a great day. And the first park I want to get into is Dollywood. And this might be just the most intriguing park on this list because we all know hypercoaster's been rumored for Dollywood for years, and rumor on the street is Big Bear Mountain was supposed to be a hypercoaster, but the last minute Dollywood went with a family-friendly ride from Vekoma. So, 2026 is the next major year for Dollywood when it comes to coasters, and could we see a Mack hypercoaster be added then? We all know Herschel Entertainment loves working with Mack Rides, so I see this fit being very realistic, but 2026 might not be the hyper. Maybe the hyper comes a few years afterwards, but regardless, I really love the fit of a Mack Rides hypercoaster. Just think of a ride like Hyperia, but longer and more low-to-the-ground elements and airtime hills, mixed in with the terrain and the ride's layout interacting with the hills up beyond Wildwood Grove. I love this fit. I really do feel as if Dollywood could very well be building a hypercoaster in 2026. I just think it makes the most sense and checks off the most boxes for Dollywood's next coaster. We're heading to Europe for Mirabilandia. And this park is a very intriguing park for me because you have Katoon as well as iSpeed. Both top-notch looking coasters, and this park appears to have a lot of room that they could work with, and they do not currently have a hypercoaster, or better yet, a coaster that solely focuses on airtime. And having a Mack Rides hypercoaster that features a 200-foot tall first drop and a bunch of airtime hills, and mixed in with a few inversions, would really do well for Mirabilandia, and it's been a long time since this park has opened up their last coaster, so I feel like a hypercoaster really makes a lot of sense for this park, and whether that's from Intamin, B&M, Vekoma, or Mack Rides, I feel like a Mack Rides hypercoaster definitely could bring the most unique style of hypercoaster to the park, and for me, I'm all for that. Now this next park is one that I've been predicting a hyper for a while, and this park is yet to announce their next coaster, but Toland. This place looks awesome. I know it's not the biggest park out there overseas, but it just looks like a really solid park. And you have Phoenix, their B&M wing coaster, as well as Troy, their very impressive GCI wooden coaster. So a hyper coaster being added into this mix would do wonders for Toverland. To my knowledge, they own a lot of land, and this park is looking to expand. Now, COVID and the pandemic kind of shuffle some things around for the park, so hopefully in the next few years or so, we'll see the park add yet another major coaster, and I have a good feeling that it could be a hypercoaster, and Mack Rides makes a lot of sense because airtime, inversions, a great first drop. It really is a perfect blend. Heading to Missouri's Silver Dollar City. Just like Dollywood, Silver Dollar City does not have a hypercoaster yet, and this park could benefit tremendously from a coaster that's over 4,000 feet long and features a ton of airtime hills and interacts with the awesome terrain that Silver Dollar City sits on. And just imagine this coaster going up a lift hill, and you look off to your left or to your right, and you see Table Rock Lake way down below. That's going to be legit awesome. There's a lot of cool things that Silver Dollar City could do with this style of coaster, as well as the ride's layout when it comes to theming and everything else mixed in with that. But I definitely feel like Silver Dollar City will be getting a new Mack Rides coaster down the road because Time Traveler is fantastic, and it's obviously that the park loves working with Mack Rides. Now, the only bad news is Silver Dollar City just spent $30 million on Fire in the Hole this year. So I do not see the park adding a new coaster until at least 2028. But realistically, that's not too far from now. And I'm really excited to see what Silver Dollar City has in store for all of us when it comes to the next coaster. Now this next park might surprise a lot of you, but I've been kind of predicting this in the past when it comes to what exactly is Universal going to be doing with Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, because I do not think this coaster is going to be standing 5 years from now. And there's no better type of ride, in my opinion, that Universal could replace Rip Ride Rocket with other than a brand new Mack Rides Hyper Coaster. I think a ride like this makes a ton of sense for Universal because they can market it as the tallest coaster in Florida, as well as possibly the fastest and one of the longest at least. And this thing could really slither its way through New York and in between the sound stages and the park, following pretty much the same footprint that Rip Ride Rocket offers, but just add in a bunch of airtime hills, maybe an inversion, maybe not. I just feel like having a major coaster at Studios that offers 3 or 4 trains is going to do wonders for that park. And we already know that Universal is working with Mack Rides for Starfall Racers at Epic Universe. So I think that's a really good step in the right direction. And I do not think that coaster will be the last one from Mack Rides to open up a Universal Orlando Park over the next 5 years. And now it's time to talk about Europa Park. And this place is special because it is all pretty much coasters from Mack Rides for the most part. You have Woodon, which is a GCI wooden twister coaster, and Silver Star, which is a B&M hyper coaster. But outside of that, pretty much every single coaster is from Mack Rides. That's because it's owned by the Mack family. And this is a fantastic park. And I cannot wait to visit because by far this is one of the most anticipated bucket list parks that I have on my list. But by adding a Mack Rides hyper coaster, now I know they have Silver Star, but that doesn't matter because look at Hershey Park. They first opened Sky Rush and then Candemonium. And having a coaster, something like Hyperia, but more like DC Rivals layout mixed in with that first drop would do wonders. So I feel like this has a slighter chance of happening, but I would really love to see what Mack Rides can do with Europa Park. Even though they're opening up Voltron this year, their new Mack Rides Striker coaster, and this thing looks fantastic. So again, slighter chance on this happening, but I would love to see what type of layout and ride Mack Rides could build that's over 200 feet tall for Europa Park. Now, the last 2 parks. First one is Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, we know that Project 2025 is going to be rather large, and there's a very slight chance that this could be a coaster over 200 feet tall. But what about if the park would replace Viper down the road, let's say 5 or 6 years from now, and add a brand new Mack Hypercoaster right in the front of the park that would basically utilize the same footprint as Viper did, as well as extend the layout in front of the park's main entrance, really interacting with park guests walking in and out of the park. Now, a ride like this does not have to be huge, and this layout here, as you can see, pays a lot of homage to Viper itself, and I would really love to see something like that added because you have the vertical loop, as well as some cool overbank turns, airtime hills. And this ride would do so well for Magic Mountain and give the park a true good hyper coaster. I mean, Goliath is fun, but it's not great. But a ride like this could easily become the best coaster to ever be built at Magic Mountain. And lastly, I saved this park for last because this prediction is rather bold. But King's Dominion. Now hear me out. The go-kart track is located right next to Grizzly, and the park is clearly removing this attraction in the next year or so because it's all walled off. It's not open anymore. This whole entire area behind the Grizzly is massive. King's Dominion could do a lot with this. And when I recently visited King's Dominion, I was able to hang out with Airtime Mike. And we had some really cool talks about like future attractions and brainstorming ideas. And we both said a hypercoaster would do so well for King's Dominion and in this location. Just imagine a ride that's filled with floater airtime, some ejector, don't worry, an inversion or two, a tunnel or two, as well as being located in the woods behind Grizzly. This right here would be the most popular attraction at King's Dominion, and I-305 is great, but it is a little very intense, obviously, and adding a very GP-friendly hypercoaster, but from Mack Rides, which we know a Mack Rides hypercoaster is going to be more intense and thrilling than a B&M hypercoaster for the most part. So that is why I'm going with Mack Rides for this one. but I would love a coaster to be around the same size as DC Rivals, feature the 90-degree first drop, that twist, as well as a bunch of airtime hills. Again, maybe in a version or two, but a hyper coaster back in the backhand corner of the park would really balance out Kings Dominion's coaster lineup. And with the new B&M Wing Coaster being added in 2025, and now potential hyper coaster being added in 28, 29, maybe 2030, Kings Dominion's future is just insane. I cannot wait to see what this park looks like in 5 years from now. If you like the Six Flags theme parks, then you definitely want to check out my Six Flags 2025 predictions, where I share with you my predictions for every single park as to what they're getting next year. With all that being said, which park out there do you think makes sense for a brand new Mack Hypercoaster? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and keep riding coasters.